Hey everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex. This is Big Baby Reviews. Check out my comics, Big Baby and Star Crasher, KingComics.CA. Check out my videos, YouTube, King Comics 2021 is the channel. Instagram, check me out, Maximus Rex 13, or on Facebook, Max Rex and or Big Baby. So today, guys, it's Wildcard Sunday. We're looking at stuff a little bit off the beaten path from our regularly scheduled videos during the week. And today we're looking at the final issue of the original Batman Black and White series. I've got the trade, slightly oversized. Talked about it before, how much I love it because, you know, just get to see that art at a slightly bigger size. Close to, I imagine, original art size. Close enough, anyways. And so finishing off our run where we looked at issue 1, 2, 3. Now we're on to issue number 4. So without further ado, we're going to start off right away. And realizing that the cropped image of the cover of the trade is actually this cover here. Kind of sucks that they cropped it for the cover, I think. This is just a great image by Alex Toth. And just no holding line in this one at all. Just everything is a shape, except for maybe there's just a little bit of highlight on the foot here, but it's a very subtle kind of thing there. I don't know if you even needed to do that, but it looks good. Very kind of 60s, and you know, the shapes and stuff he's using, just pre-psychedelia. That's how I describe it. So this is an interesting story by Brian Boland. From his very first professional work, it was clear that Brian Boland was destined to be one of the all-time greats, making his debut back in the mid-70s with Power Man, a collaboration with Dave Gibbons. Boland already showed his incredible command of anatomy and perspective, as well as the razor-sharp line work that has been his trademark. Boland then drew British newspaper strips with Sid Jordan before moving on to 2000 AD, where he would produce some of the most remarkable artwork seen in comics. Much of his most notable work there was on Judge Dredd, where he drew the first appearances of both Judge Death and Judge Anderson. Brian's first major American work was the maxi series Camelot 3000, an epic updating of the classic tale. I've never read Camelot 3000. I mean, it's Brian Boland artwork, looks great, but I just always kind of see a bunch of issues in the dollar bin. Just doesn't seem to be anything really that anyone caught on with, other than just the fact that it's Brian Boland artwork. He then took 2 years to draw Batman the Killing Joke, often acclaimed as the single greatest Batman story ever. Debatable. Since then, it's definitely interesting. I'd say that. Since then, Boland has chosen to work primarily on covers, contributing astonishing artwork to the fronts of several series, most notably Animal Man and Wonder Woman. So the basic story here is this just kind of normal guy who's talking about he wants to do one bad thing in his life and then kind of, you know, go off and this is what he's explained to you here. Go off and live a normal life. So he's thought about he wants to, you know, it gets dark here. There's an old disused sewer shaft out in a place I know where no one ever goes. I thought I'd kidnap a little girl and chain her up down there and leave her there weeping and wailing in the dark till she's starved to death. Whew. You gotta understand I'm not some kind of pervert or anything like that, but whatever I can do to make her ordeal worse and ruin the lives of her family, I'll do. But somehow this isn't enough. So it's a pretty twisted story. It's got to be bigger thing somehow. Something that'll leave a mark on more people, like the killing of John Lennon. It's got to be somebody famous. I thought about the Pope, but he's always surrounded by those Secret Service guys and riding around in his bulletproof Pope-mobile. And, well, I don't get over to Italy very often. In fact, never. And just kind of obscuring his face, because I guess the timelessness of the story, you know, the Pope could be any Pope from any period, kind of, when you're reading it. So basically, it's I got to choose my victim for the sake of convenience. It's got to be someone who doesn't have an armed guard, someone right here in Gotham. It's got to be the Batman. So he decides that he wants to kill the Batman. And, you know, we get kind of a typical tale. He says, you know, Batman's going to be on one of his missions, you know, running after Two-Face or Poison Ivy or these guys with animal masks, right? Those 3 guys with animal masks whose names I can never remember. It's some funny references here, actually. It's a fun story, even though it's kind of dark. And I just wanted to mention, he says, throw down your brawly, Penguin. Just got to say, there's no way in hell any American has ever said brawly for umbrella. That's a very British thing, I'm pretty sure. In America, people don't call umbrellas brawlies. They just call them umbrellas. Anyway, so he's basically defeated the Penguin. He says, you know, the good guy will make a dramatic exit, leaving the bad guy to ponder the error of his ways, because let's face it, crime doesn't pay. And just for one moment, the Batman will pause, turn, his face illuminated by a single light, a splendid avenger of the night. And then from a dark alley or a window high up, or a grassy knoll, reference to Lee Harvey Oswald, obviously, or the killing of Kennedy, specifically. The window is maybe more Lee Harvey Oswald. At least those people who believe he was there. Or some other place. There'll be a glint, and then bang! We get a pretty graphic image of Batman just getting shot through the head and bleeding out in the street and being dead. Nice little touch is seeing his reflection here in the blood. I thought that's like a panel within a panel, using the blood as an extra kind of bit of storytelling. Very nice. Nice touch there. And so he won't leave, you know, he says, before anyone finds him lying there, I'll be long gone. I'll destroy this tape. I won't have a motive. I won't leave a clue. I'm just an innocent guy, right? Then I think I'll finish my college education, marry my girlfriend, and have a couple of kids. A boy and a girl would be nice. Live a good and blameless life, and I go to heaven when I die. It's interesting, right? Next story is by Kevin Nolan and written by Jan Stranad, I guess is how you'd say it. I'm not quite sure. He works a lot with Richard Corbin, right? But art-wise, Kevin Nolan is considered the Renaissance man of the comics world. He's easily one of the greatest pencilers, inkers, colorists, and letterers working in the business today, so he does it all. His talents have made him a near god among his peers, who are simply in awe of his artwork. And looking at this, you'll understand why. He's, you know, his just black and white line work, just and dark spaces and stuff, and choice of shadows is just impeccable. Looks great, kind of a classic look, but also kind of modern. Just good stuff, and it's just great artwork. I don't know exactly what to pinpoint out, but like I said, the shadows and the figures and stuff, and it's all very precise. What I will mention is, you know, when I first encountered Kevin Nolan, I didn't know about his penciling and stuff. I didn't know much about him, and he was inking Joe Quesada on that sort of Azrael Batman miniseries. And you know, I thought the artwork looked great, but I could kind of tell it looked different from what Joe Quesada usually looked like. And then eventually figured out that, you know, Kevin Nolan was inking him to almost pretty much, you know, almost like the artist had done layouts and he was doing his own finish on top. When I look at this shot of Batman, it pretty much looks like the Batman in that sort of Azrael miniseries, which is odd, right? So Kevin Nolan, I think I do prefer him doing his own artwork because he tends to overpower anyone he inks over. So I also remember him inking a few pages of Super Patriot, kind of a flashback sequence, and it's a sequence that the regular artist Dave Johnson drew. And again, that same phenomenon where Nolan inking on top of him, everything just starts to look like Kevin Nolan art. Not that that's horrible, because his art is amazing, as you can see here. I mean, this splash page here, just look at that machine, that contraption, the use of light and shadow, and, you know, just impeccable, right? Super clear reading. Everything just, like I said, easy to visualize and read all the way through. This shot where, you know, everything falls out of the tank, floods the top, and it just pours down. All these weird, you could spend a bit of time looking at all these weird creatures kind of flying out at the same time. These monsters that this mad scientist has created. And of course, the mad scientist gets taken away by one of his creatures. That's kind of a trope of the mad scientist. Undone by his own creation. And basically ends with Batman saying, you know, some of these have fallen in the harbor, but we can't, you know, afford to have these hatch and grow and live in the city. So he's just going to spend all night crushing these embryos here, which is pretty darn gross to think of Batman's night consisting of that for the rest of the night. So this is an interesting story too, kind of pulpy, takes place in the late 30s, you know, wartime, I guess, right before, during World War II. Gary Gianni's luscious artwork stirs up memories of a time long gone, Taking a cue from penwork masters of the past, like Joseph Clement Cole and Franklin Booth, Gary's approach to comic book art is as sophisticated as it is enticing. With this Batman story, Gianni adds DC classic American pulp hero to an already long list of others he's drawn, including The Shadow, Doc Savage, and Indiana Jones. Yeah, I do like the artwork. I'm like, sometimes I think it's great, and other shots I just kind of find a little too busy and doesn't quite work for me. But overall, it's a pretty cool story. And Batman, kind of almost like an Elseworlds tale, where Batman's kind of set in the late 30s here. He's this spy buster, and this kid gets kidnapped. This father, you know, this guy wants him to make something for him, or he's here to take something, and he takes the kid instead. And of course, Batman's going to intervene, save the kid. But just these are the shots that really impressed me in this story. Everything involving the Zeppelin here, you know, this shot here is probably the best in the whole story. And then we get some fun stuff with Batman and his gyrocopter. And this panel, I think, is the best drawn panel. I don't know, the line work's a little lighter. You know, it defines the volumes better, I find, than throughout most of the other stories. Most of the hatching tends to make it a little bit murky, I find. But this whole panel is hilarious to me because like Batman's catching the kid with one arm, but also punching this other guy as the gyrocopter is going past. I mean, if you really stop to think about it, this panel's pretty ludicrous. We got Brian Stilfreeze here, who usually I do like, but in stark black and white like this, I don't find his style works as well for me as it usually does in his painted stuff and other interior artwork I've seen him do, or at least where it's colored. Maybe if this were colored, it would help a lot. But yeah, I find he's a great artist. He's got a great handle on anatomy, dark and light, all that stuff. But the fact that his kind of finish is very angular, it just makes it confusing to me in some panels, right? And basically Batman gets shot here and he's kind of remembering when his parents got shot. That's basically the story here. No one's really trying to help him. Some interesting design elements here and there. But yeah, I just find this kind of hurts my eyes a little bit. If I don't know how else to describe it. It's just, I find it very sharp and angular and just hard to read visually. They're not pleasant. I mean, it's not that hard. It's pretty clear. But there's just something about it that attacks my visual senses. It's hard to describe. Yeah. I think this particular story might be better colored. But that's just me. And then we get the third mask by Katsuhiro Otomo. Comic book artist and writer Katsuhiro Otomo is a legend on both sides of the Pacific Ocean. If you know Akira, obviously. His work transcends language on the sheer strength of its creative genius. The phenomenal success of his groundbreaking masterpiece, Akira, sent shockwaves throughout the comics and animation world. Although he's now a famous animator, director, writer, and designer to the legions of Otomo fans, he will remain simply one of the greatest comic book artists in the history of the medium. So, just a few kind of Japanese tropes. We've got the character the Batman's going after. The artwork is impeccable all the way through. I got nothing to say. But yeah, this character, you know, kind of that Japanese trope of like Akira, the character becomes more powerful and kind of blows up is what's happening here. Kind of a Dragon Ball thing, you know, the veins come out and stuff. Pretty common in Japanese. It's like almost like the Japanese version of Hulk, right? So that's what happens with this guy. And he runs off. Batman can't quite catch him. I love the souped up version of the kind of the Burton Batmobile, and I do feel like Otomo is looking at a lot of the Keaton stuff for this comic. The interior of the Batmobile is kind of similar, obviously. If the design is based on that, he's given it kind of some different elements with the hood and stuff, but it's basically the Burton Batmobile. And here, I don't think it's ever explicitly said in the comic. It might be, but like, doesn't that look like Axis chemicals to you from the Batman movie, 1989? I would definitely think, you know, that's where he got the idea for that. Brings out the old bat signals, got everything here. But as far as story goes, I mean, it's just kind of weird where he shows up and he doesn't have a bat signal anymore and is on his chest and the mask is different. There's just like, I'm not quite sure what he's trying to get at here, even today. Fools, there you are, Batman. I'm not Batman. And that's just how it ends. So anyone has any insight into what they think maybe is going on here, what he's trying to say, let me know in the comments. So we got real quick some interesting layouts from Kevin Nolan here. We can see kind of how it starts off and how it's finished. Looks pretty good. You get some different, you know, layouts from Gianni, a little more subdued maybe, and then even in the pencil here, I find like maybe I would prefer if this were just inked more faithfully rather than all the lines he tends to add. There's some lines here, but I think like you've got enough for clarity's sake. And then as he inks more and more, it gets a little more muddled. All right, so not a lot on that issue as far as, you know, bonus material, but then we get a bunch of pinups at the end, which are fun. So we'll talk about those and that'll be our review. So Michael Allred on the left here. I mean, it's fine. Not one of my favorite pieces of work from Mike Allred. I've seen better stuff. Moebius doing Batman is pretty rare, unless you've read that Ratman story from Penthouse Comics. But I do like kind of this shot of non-typical shot of Batman. You know, he's not standing on the side of a building, you know, in that heroic pose. He's just kind of sitting down and relaxing. And I like kind of the leathery texture he gives the cape, which still kind of looks like a cape, but also wings. So I think that looks cool. It's a nice little touch that I haven't seen from other artists, I don't think. So that leathery, fully leathery kind of look. The Kaluta drawing, I've never quite understood what the hell it is and why. It's like, you know, Batman's got a marionette of Batman. It's kind of, I don't know. just odd to me. Tony Salmons, actually friends with him on Facebook. I'll be honest, kind of some odd posts and stuff sometimes. Not quite sure what's up with that guy, but his artwork is amazing. That's why we're friends on Facebook. I love his stuff, and here's a good example. The way he distorts and foreshortens stuff I think is great and very unique. So this is a good example of it here. Maybe I should turn this way so you guys can have a better look at that, right? There's a lot of distortion on the Batman. He did a Daredevil story in the late 80s and stuff. Anything you can find by him is at least minimally visually interesting for sure. P. Greg Russell, great artist. This image I'm not quite sure where he's going with this. A murder's just happened. Batman's catching a letter someone's thrown down, or he's jumping. Like, I don't know exactly what's going on here. Just weird storytelling wise to me. We got Mark Silvestri doing his Jim Lee pastiche, so you still see some of the Silvestri in there, but a lot of the detail has become kind of West Coasty and Jim Lee-ish. So this is definitely like, Image, Wildstorm, Top Cow version of Batman. This, always thought it was cool. Probably the first time I saw it was here, and just the idea, it's the first time I was confronted with the idea that, yeah, Batman would probably have tons of scars. Alex Ross has talked about how he got this idea from an old, I think from the late 70s Batman comic with Joe Staton. It was kind of the first time that was ever kind of discussed in that story. There's a shot of Batman's, I guess it's his back, and you can kind of see all the scars and stuff from, fighting crime over all those years, right? Every time he's been cut and stabbed, bullet holes for sure is what that looks like, right? And Alex Ross kind of doing it in that, somewhat realistic style that he's got. Looks cool, right? It's always fun to see that. Neil Adams doing kind of a fun Neil Adamsy pinup, and what I mean by that is, the Eastern influence and the martial arts and stuff. He was big into that, right? In a lot of his artwork, and that's it. Oh, all right. Well, there you go, guys. This ends our review of Batman Black and White with the 4th issue. If you are subscribed and you're still watching, thank you so much for being there. Really appreciate it. Those of you who are watching who are not subscribed, please do so below. It only takes a quick second, and really helps the channel out, helps us grow, helps us get out there to other people who are into comic books just like we are. So thank you once again, guys, for watching. Have a great Sunday. Have an amazing day.
Like, subscribe, like, subscribe.
King Comics presents Big Baby, Volume 1, Issues 1 to 13. 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents Star Crasher one-shot, 32 pages, cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at KINGCOMICS.CA, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby.